Hey everybody, it's Paige with The Paige Show. Thanks for joining us again for another episode of Real Talk, Real Life with a flair of spirit and a side of humor. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those great social media connections, and thepageshow.com, where you'll discover information about me, what we're doing, and what's happening next. Hey everybody, it's Paige with The Paige Show. The thought today, the topic to get you thinking today is validation. What do you see, hear, feel, or think about when I say validation? So this comes to me off of getting report cards for my children. So being a mama who, with my younger ones, my oldest has been in and out of school and homeschooling, and we've been on this journey of trying it all. But my younger ones were only homeschooled because they're younger, starting out their ages 5 and 7, and so a little kindergartner and first grader now. And so in experiencing that with my 12-year-old, I decided that if you saw another podcast about the simple life, to simplify things for me, someone else needed to be their teacher of reading and writing and all of the things, and I just needed to be their mom and their teacher of mom things. And as my 5-year-old would say, her life goal is to snuggle. So I needed to be a mom that could snuggle, that I wasn't so tired at the end of the day or frustrated with trying to get her to learn her ABCs when she gives zero fucks about it. That's how we call her. My child is the zero fucks child. I know you all have one of those. And she is just this beautiful little ball of energy that really just wants to love everyone and snuggle and enjoy art and playing outside, but has no idea or desire about anything else. And that's great. And that is what gave me the draw to want to homeschool her and try to push through some of my frustrations with that. But in the end, long story short, simplifying, they go to school. So fast forward off my tangent to report cards. This was the first report cards that my kindergartner and first grader have ever experienced. So you can imagine it was exciting. I made a big deal about it. I didn't care what it was going to look like. They love to go to Starbucks because it's seems like a mommy thing, like an adult thing to do because it's mommy's, that's where I get my coffee on the run. I love all these other shops, but the report card story ended up at Starbucks. And because they have cake pops, if you want me to shop other places, people get some cake pops because they are, my jam and they are my kids' jam. So they get their cake pop and we get our report cards. And as I'm going over their report cards with them, and we're sitting at the table at home, and my 5-year-old is chowing down on her cake pop and could care less, as usual, what I'm explaining about the report card. And here is, one of them is like aced everything, and the other one, we're not going to call names, but you could imagine already, was the complete opposite. And yet they both were seeking validation. And they just needed to know that whatever they had was good for them. They needed some sort of validation, which of course I was able to bring to them, mamas do what we do, daddies do what you do, whatever, parents do what you do. And then we went about our business, but it stayed with me, the thought of validation. And I remember as a kid getting report cards, and there was a time in my life where I had step siblings and my regular sibling, was off and on, lots of age gaps. And there was a competitive piece in me, surprise, surprise, that I needed to always have straight A's and be beat everyone else in the household. And there was a time where my mom completely drew the line, and the rule in the house was that nobody saw each other's report card. And so I can definitely see that in my future needing to be a life skill, a house rule that becomes my house rule. So there you go. In the moments where you're like, I'm never going to do what my mom did, here we are, told you so. Mom gets to say, told you so. I'm giving you one, Mom. And And the validation worked this time, but it brought me to validation as a whole and remembering it in my report cards to adulthood, and just how you can see in your life through memories, you kind of always could see who you were, but then as you get older, you start to embrace it more and get rid of some of the things that, maybe aren't so great, or you morph them into something that can be great. All of the above happened. And then I saw well, isn't that a bitch? Because and I'm talking to spirit when I say that, because I'm like, they got jokes, as the kid, you needed to have validation from something as simple as I'm dancing in front of my grandparents to get attention. I need to know that was the best dance that they ever saw. And they're lying to you, but you still need to hear it. And then as an adult, morphing into my abilities at 7 of seeing people who had crossed and not knowing what to do with it, but knowing I was going to do something with it, to then fast forward all these life experiences professionally, completely going the way of, shutting down spirit in a way, and just being a professional. That's what I was supposed to do for that time in my life. But there was a part of my work that needed to be validated as a professional. So my point is, if you're following me, is that the need for validation never leaves us. Okay. If you don't need to be validated, great. I want to hear how you do it. But I could imagine that whatever relationship you're in, or title that you may have in one of those areas of your life, you seek validation. It's human nature. We want to know that we're somewhat getting it right. It doesn't have to be perfect. Some of us do. But it needs to be that we're somewhat close to the mark. We may be way over here, but the bullseye, at least it's somewhat lined up, right? I love archery, and I love axe throwing. Oh my God, people, axe throwing is like the new craze, and I cannot believe that I didn't think of something like that, because I love anything that you can get aggression out on. And so axe throwing, if you've never been, please go. It's like a wonderful date or a thing to do with your kid or spouse, whatever, friends. But you throw it just like you would, you're throwing at a target, like you would darts or, archery, whatever. But it was, for me, it's the imagery of validation being here, like with the bullseye, but the symbolism and parallels to us just needing to know in our life that we're close to the bullseye. We're somewhat can be validated. We've somewhat got it. I see you, I hear you, those things, those statements you hear me see, that comes from a place of understanding that people need that. I work with people. I'm in life with people. We need that. So enough on the need. I think we've gotten that across, but validation, what that really looks like, and where do we source it from if we're not getting it from an outside source, and what things in your life are testing your boundaries on validation right now. Okay. And what I mean by that is what is really, really, really crawling up your skin, where you're just ready to scream because you're not getting the validation that you need. What do you do when that happens? And a big life experience for me is through, dentistry, trying to prove myself to be the best hygienist, until finally I just knew within myself that I was, a badass at certain things, and that's just how it was. And I'm confident about it. And you guys need to be confident about something in your life like that, to then morphing into more of my spirit work. And it's starting really with me tapping into what I knew from 7 years old, and my medium work. That was the thing that came in strongest for me. It happened after a near-death experience for me, and I have been on a journey of uncovering that while still balancing all the rest, until I knew what I was supposed to be doing full time. And that's where we are. But along the way, validation doesn't change. And then the irony where I say spirit it's got jokes, all of my clients will hear me say that, people in my life, is that now I'm doing a work that literally puts you on the spot where you say, I can talk to people who have crossed over, or spirit work where you're getting, divine downloads, or some people would call it psychic or whatever. I choose intuitive. I think that is a word that speaks and doesn't separate as much. Psychic has all these different views about it from TV and the side of the road signs, and intuitiveness speaks to what we all have in us, intuition, divine gut feelings that we all have. And so intuitive work is all about validation. Medium work is, in essence, it would not exist without validation. And so this girl who needed to be all A's and beat everyone in the house with her report card, which I can already see in my little ones. Now Spirit has led her down a road to literally say your life's work is going to be about freaking validation. Like, how crazy is that? And then it brought up all of these times where I was, standing, whether in front of one person or 20 people, and, trying to drop in, like to do, my check-in, I'm clocked in, I'm ready to do this reading or whatever it may be, teaching session. And you look at all the eyes around you, all the eyes that are watching this, all the people who are going to be critics of something that I say, if not all of it. And you're like, there is no way. There's no way. There's your illusion of control. Wish I would have had this download, a decade ago, that everyone in this room, everyone in this world is going to validate everything, if anything, that I say. Do you hear me? Do you see me on this? There's something that you're doing, something in your life where you can look at it and say, I got to give it up, because there is no way that anyone's going to validate this for me, okay, but me. And spirit work wise, trusting myself on the information, trusting myself that spirit has a covering over me and they have the best interest of myself and all of the people that they are calling me to serve, or that they help find me, and likewise me reaching out to people, that there's a covering over us of love, that they, they're not trying to embarrass us or stunt our growth by creating these experiences that are so traumatic we would never do it again. There's your comfort as well, but they are also putting you in scenarios where you have to find the validation for yourself. So what I'm saying to you is, like, my life's work as an example, I had to have a validation within myself that I could trust my knowing, my intuition, and this ability enough to put it out there. I had to trust, what I'm doing enough to do a podcast about these crazy topics. And it's only getting deeper, people. The flow is only going to get better. And I had to have the validation first. There was literally no one in my life that could validate it for me. They couldn't see what I saw about myself. They couldn't hear it or know it. It was my knowing. It was my thing, right? My party. If you've watched other podcasts, they've talked about your party with God, your destiny with God. That's your party that you can't miss. And so it was my party, and I couldn't have anyone else plan it or see it for me. And so when I had the reality that validation had to come within first, it shifted everything for me. So anytime that I go in front of a group of people, or I have a one-on-one, especially with, a lot of people now are searching new avenues of connection, but they come from so many backgrounds that you're having, I don't know if anybody else hears me on this or has experienced that, you're having more skeptics than ever. And it's not just happening in my line of work, it's like atheist going to church, it's like all of these things are crossing over and seek for connection and different ideas of what can work for me. And that validation piece worked the same. I had to go through so many personal experiences, so many readings and all of these things with really hard people who almost wanted to, well, not almost, they did. They were in some places there just to test me, to test if this was something real. And you know, the comical part is you people, you skeptics, you come to these sessions, you come to these events, and it's like, did you not know where you were coming? Like, did you know, there are frauds out there that you can get that over on, but did you not know where you were coming? Like, come on now, like, you think that I can't see or know that you're a skeptic and you're testing me. You know, people who do this work, you know what I'm talking about. People who just are in tune with their gut feeling, you know what I'm talking about. You know when somebody's bullshitting you about, you know, the price of something or their story, you know when people are genuine. If you're in tune at all, you know that was a survival mechanism that was birthed into us as humans. So funny, you know, haha, whatever. But my point is that I would never have done any of those things if I had not discovered validation within myself. And I only discovered validation within myself through having to go through times of it being tested. So see, if you stay with me, you see where these tangents go. They make sense. You just see the inside of my brain, how it works. And so I was able, in something as simple as going through my kids' report cards, one thought, I've told you that in podcasts before, let one thought take you down the path of whatever it is that's supposed to bless you. And that's what did it for me, that I was able to say thank you so much for all of the times where I was scared to death to do this or that. It doesn't mean just like my life works, my example, but think about whatever has scared you to death that you knew you were supposed to do and you did it, and you gain more confidence on the other side of it. That's your validation. That is the skill of being validated within that I'm talking about. Being able to push through the things that say, you know, make you say, look, God, if you do not show up for this, if you embarrass me through this, I am never doing this again. And there's times where you have had those moments and you feel like maybe God didn't come through, Spirit didn't hear you or see you, and you did get embarrassed or you did want to quit. And I just tell you that whether it ended up good or not, it was all the lesson in learning to validate yourself. On the times that it ended poorly for you, then you reflect on that and you say, well, what was that lesson then? You know, what piece was it? What do I look at? In my work, I could tell you an example of it would be that someone has come in, and if you've never been in a medium session, had one, or a group reading, you know, the energy is very high in the room and things are coming out to bless everyone, even if you don't get your specific message. But that you know, the person that you wanted to come through, Spirit comes through for everybody. And so in that atmosphere, there's so much information that's being thrown out that you can be like you are most of the time as the person receiving the message, a deer in the headlights. And so there's a lot of times where as an intuitive worker or a medium, whatever you do, doing a lecture in a business that's overwhelming people's brains, you could just be like, this is so simple. How did you not see that relate to you? And if you walk away from that feeling like you failed, like, you know, you missed the mark, instead of seeing that it could be something as simple as the person just couldn't get it then, they didn't see it then, you know, and you're never going to probably see down the road when it did come to them. If you can see that as your lesson in the times that you feel like you failed, then you still create a validation process in yourself. And these collective experiences in life, it doesn't have to be something what you would consider grand or on stage or whatever, just your interactions with your people, your places in life. If you can find those times where you had to validate yourself and see whatever you did in that moment to validate yourself, use that as a tool that you bring into your toolbox and you keep with you. then when the really hard, challenging things come against you, where no one, no one is going to validate that experience or thing for you, then you have the tool to validate it yourself. In validating things on our own, and understanding that we can validate ourselves and meet that need without an outside source always doing it for us, then you can really just feel free to do what it is that you do. You can feel free to do those things that are challenging, the things that are happy. You can just feel free. You can stay maybe in the relationship that looks perfect on paper, but feels like it's missing that one piece. I trust me, this is a woman who has been married at 18 and divorced at 28, and been in a new partnership for 8 years, still not married after 8 years. There's like all of these things. I've told you, this show is all about me being real. There's these relationships, are huge on this, where you can see this person on paper and can say everything about them, fits my list per se, but there's just this one thing that I'm not getting validated on. And if you were like me, I have worked years, decades, continue to work daily on not being like the runaway, bride, runaway Gemini, as I say, because I have an incredible ability to turn off the switch. And it's not something that's always served me. It has in times, but there have been relationships and friendships in my life where I flipped the switch, and maybe I shouldn't have, because I wasn't getting validation. But in reflection, like we all do in hindsight, I realized that, there was something in there that could have been salvaged had I seen it, and could have validated what I was missing on my own. And so this isn't about shame or guilt or letting things go, and now trying to go get them back, people. This is not what the podcast is about. It's an example of real life experience where, we can see all of this come together because it's all connected, and just move forward in better ways. It's in this particular talk, a time to just think about validating yourself instead of seeking that outside always, and just seeing where that falls in your life, and maybe, just maybe, it helps you in some areas that you're struggling with now. It gives you a different perspective or a shift on things. And so validation has been here since the beginning of time. It is not going to leave us anytime soon, but you definitely can be braver and put yourself out there more and push through things more if you work on gaining the skill of validating yourself in the times where others seem to not see you or hear you. Until next time, be kind to yourself, and thank you for being here, joining me for the Paige Show. That's it for today, but until we do it again, remember, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, and let's keep loving, laughing, and lighting up this world one badass person at a time.